I am here today to urge our Senate colleagues to join me in considering the confirmation of two excellent people to serve on the Postal Regulatory Commission, which is the governing body for the U.S. Postal Service. Robert Taub is currently a commissioner, and we're seeking to reconfirm him, and also Thomas Day, who has come through our Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee, and I think unanimously recommended for a position on the Postal Regulatory Commission. Both of these public servants have spent literally decades bettering our country. Mr. Taub has served on the commission since 2011, and he actually served as chairman for, I think, more than 6 years. Mr. Day has spent, listen to this, over 35 years at the Postal Service, 35 years at the Postal Service, and another service in, as I recall, in uniform for our country. I'd like to add that we have unanimously confirmed Mr. Taub not once but twice previously, and there is no doubt that he has served our country well. Now, I want to share 3 stories with you, if I can, about a little bit about the history and the importance of the Postal Service. Another about Mr. Taub's role in making the agency what it is today, and a third about Mr. Day's influence on the function of our postal system across this country. In 1787, the founding fathers of our country gathered in Philadelphia to literally to draft a constitution that would outline how a new country might be formed and actually operate and work for the betterment of people who lived here then and in the future. They drafted a constitution, and they sent that constitution out across the 13 colonies and asked the colonies to look at it, kick the tires, find out what they liked and what they thought ought to be changed. And the first state to actually take it up and affirm, ratify, if you will, that constitution was the colony that is now Delaware, the state of Delaware. And we, on December 7th, 1787, after a week or so of debate at the Golden Fleece Tavern, the founding fathers of Delaware said, "We like this constitution," and maybe tweaked it a little bit and sent it on to the other colonies who followed suit. Delaware was for one whole week the entire United States of America. And then we opened it up. We let in Pennsylvania and Maryland, and the rest, I think it's turned out pretty well for the most part until now, and hopefully will continue to exist for many, many years, decades, centuries into the future. One key element of the Constitution was the creation of the Postal Service. And the first Postmaster General was actually, believe it or not, Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin. The establishment of the Postal Service represented an important early effort to bind us together as a nation, to unite us in communication with one another. That work continues today as postal workers cover all 50 states. They did it today. They'll do it at least 6 days this week. And to also make sure that we have the ability to provide the Postal Service to folks who live in the U.S. territories. Delivering the mail that helps unite our families, it helps to grow our businesses, and it helps enable our democracy to function and thrive. More than 2 centuries later, we continue to live up to that promise. In 2006, one of our colleagues, Senator Susan Collins, and I led the passage of the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act, literally on this floor where we're gathered today. That legislation modernized the Postal Service for the first time, I think, since 1970. And just last year, we went on to pass the, on top of that, the Postal Service Reform Act to shore up the agency's financial foundation, including a requirement for all Postal Service retirees to enroll in Medicare when they became eligible for those benefits. Over the past couple of years, I've had the opportunity to work with Postmaster General Louis DeJoy and the Postal Commission to make the agency even more energy efficient. And together, we've successfully secured billions of dollars to expand the number of electrical vehicles in the Postal Service delivery fleet. Though Postal Service has one of the biggest delivery fleets in the country, they also have one of the oldest and one of the most polluting. And what we've done is worked with the leadership of the Postal Service to make sure that as those old vehicles time out, and they really, for the most part, have timed out, they need to be replaced. They're going to be replaced with vehicles that will not only help us deliver the mail and do an even better job of that, but to make sure that the delivery vehicles that are out there aren't making worse the climate crisis that we're going through as a nation, as a planet. I want to tell you a little bit more about Mr. Taub, if I could, and how he has been an integral to the changes that we've seen in the Postal Service, especially as it has become more modern and more efficient. After spending years as a staff member to members of Congress and ambassadors and working for the Government Accountability Office, Mr. Taub, native New Yorker, became Chief of Staff to then Congressman John McHugh, an old friend and a very good member of the House, a Republican, as I recall. But under Representative McHugh's leadership, Mr. Taub helped craft the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act in the House of Representatives. That was the same legislation that I mentioned earlier that I worked on with Senator Collins, and together with Representative McHugh and his team, we ushered the bill to the President's desk, where it was signed into law again in 2006. This transformation of the Postal Service was just the beginning for Mr. Taub's involvement with the Postal Service. After establishing his expertise in the public sector, he continued continued on beyond this work. When Representative McHugh was appointed Secretary of the Army, and as Secretary McHugh, as Secretary McHugh's principal civilian advisor, Mr. Taub helped lead a workforce of more than, get this, 1.2 million people and manage an annual budget exceeding $200 billion. No small feat. And for his exemplary work, Mr. Taub was awarded the Army's Decoration for Distinguished Civilian Service. All this led to Mr. Taub serving on the Postal Regulatory Commission under not one, not two, but three presidents, including both Democrats and Republicans. He was first nominated to the commission in 2011, and his strong leadership led to his appointment as chairman of the commission in 2014. As I like to say, in adversity lies opportunity. And despite the troubles left over from a previous chairman, Mr. Taub took adversity in stride. He embraced the role of chairman with diligence and grace. He led a massive undertaking to study and to revise the postal rate system as a result of the Postal Accountability Enhancement Act he helped to pass. And in 2016, his work paid off when he was once again confirmed to be chairman to the commission and continued to serve as chairman. Mr. Day has had an incredible record with the Postal Service as well. Let me just take a minute and talk about it. In his 35 years at the agency, he has held almost every role imaginable, including that of Vice President of Engineering Department and the Government Affairs Department, as well as the Chief Sustainability Officer. And in his role on the sustainability team, Mr. Day helped lead the Postal Service into environmentally conscious practices of the 21st century. As chairman of the Environmental and Public Works Committee, I know the importance, that's my role, but I know the importance of our agencies carrying out practices that protect our planet. Mr. Day shares this belief and understands it firsthand. For example, he's been working to reduce the fuel emissions of the aging postal fleet I talked about, and to do that over the past decade. Let me be clear, if I could, the kind of institutional knowledge and expertise that Mr. Day holds is unique and would make him an extremely valuable asset on the commission. Mr. Day also has experience working with the exchange of mail on an international scale, serving in senior positions at the Universal Postal Union, a United Nations agency, and at the International Post Corporation. And on top of that, he's a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point and has bravely served in the U.S. Army. I'm retired Navy captain, last Vietnam veteran, serving in the U.S. Senate. And when I learned about his service in the Army, I'm a Navy guy. I said, different uniforms, same team, and thank him for all of his service in uniform as well. There's no doubt that someone with this commitment to our nation would make a terrific addition to the Postal Regulatory Commission. Together, Mr. Taub and Mr. Day will continue revising the postal rates system and modernizing the agency for the betterment of our country. For this reason, among many others, we think it's imperative that we confirm both of them, not one of them, but both of them, make sure that the commission is fully staffed. Congress and the Postal Service customers rely on the Commission to hold the agency accountable for its service performance and to ensure its prices follow the law and its practices follow the law. And it is our duty to make sure the agency can perform at the highest level, including for the good of our planet. I like to say service to others is the rent we pay for the space we take up on this earth. I think Mr. Taub and Mr. Day's decades of service to this country is more rent than most of us will ever be asked to pay. I urge your colleagues to confirm both Mr. Taub and Mr. Day to ensure that the Postal Regulatory Commission can continue to do its important work on behalf of all of us who are the unfortunate beneficiaries of the Constitution that was written all those years ago and the promise that it provided for our country. And with that, Madam President, I would note the absence of quorum, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank our colleagues and ask for their support of the nomination of these two excellent, excellent candidates. Thank you, ma'am. And with that, I note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.